case featuring the craziest twists you have ever heard. For investigators, cold cases are the most challenging. They are hampered by a number of shortcomings, such as the absence of supporting data, resource constraints, and occasionally poor investigations. After initial attempts to solve the case fail to succeed, it gradually goes cold. With barely any clues at first, the murder cases of Tracie Hawlett and J.B. Beasley almost went unsolved. 24 years have passed since police discovered the bodies of the two Dothan teenagers in Ozark. To commemorate their anniversary and keep their memories alive, family and friends have conducted vigils every year. What happened to the girls 24 years ago, and what recent developments have there been? Welcome to Unresolved Crimes, where we feature cold cases, twisted cases, and solved cases from around the world. If you like to watch similar contents, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications to watch our latest episodes. Known as the home of Fort Rucker, which is situated in the center of Dale County, Ozark is a city in southeast Alabama, close to the Florida border. Nearly 15,000 individuals live in this picturesque southern town home. It's a good location for both starting a family and retiring. But before the horrific double homicide of two high school seniors in 1999, which left the neighborhood baffled for years, the town was not the kind of location to make headlines. Parents Cheryl and Hilton Lanier Beasley welcomed J.B. Hilton Green Beasley into the world on July 31st, 1981 in Troy, Alabama. In 1984, she and her mother moved to Dothan following the divorce of her parents. Her mother and her stepfather, Joey Bagoon, whom her mother married after a few years, both cherished her. She and her four sisters grew up in a beautiful Dothan home. J.B. developed into an extroverted young woman who participated in cheering, dance, piano, swimming, and other extracurricular activities. On March 3, 1982, Tracie Jean Hawlett was born to Caroline Robert and Robert Hawlett. Unfortunately, her father, who worked in the Dothan Police Department, died when Tracie was just 5 years old. Later, her mother remarried Mike Roberts, who assisted in raising Tracie alongside her mother. Unlike J.B., Tracie was a bit bashful but never hesitated to put people before herself. She also took great care of her two younger brothers who were under her care. Detectives struggle to understand crimes with scant or no evidence for a variety of reasons. It might have to do with the missing individual or with ritualistic killings that have no explanation and no leads. The case of Tracie and J.B. Beasley had a comparable premise, although some leads resulted in intriguing discoveries and a trial. How did the crime occur? And who is the most likely suspect to be found guilty? Who are J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett? Incoming seniors J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett attended Northview High School in Dothan, Alabama. Beasley made the decision to have a lavish birthday celebration in 1999 because she was turning 17 at the time. The two teenagers decided to go to a field party, a popular youth activity in the South, at the house of another close friend named Jana. J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett murder story. The two teenage girls were killed more than 20 years ago. The police have followed up on every lead they can think of. The girls' final days before being discovered dead and placed in Beasley's car trunk were the subject of several remarkable findings as a result of their inquiry. Tracie and J.B. go missing. They first left Tracie's residence about 10 p.m. and at around 10:30 p.m. they were spotted in Headland. But they soon realized that they were going in the wrong direction and asked friends to assist them. Tracie's curfew was 11:30 p.m., so it was already late. After discovering that they were going in the wrong direction, the teenage girls eventually found themselves in Ozark an hour later. The community is located 20 miles northwest of Dothan. Tracie and JB stumbled into Marilyn Merritt, a woman who had stopped at the Big Little convenience shop to buy a drink. She was requested to give them directions back to US Highway 231. Afterwards, Tracie used a pay phone to call her mother to let her know that she would be late and was lost in Ozark. It was her last exchange with her mother because the girls were unlucky enough to never return home. On top of that, except the person who killed the teenage girls that awful night, Merritt would have been the last to see them. Shocking discovery. After failing to go home by 8 a.m. in the following morning, JB Beasley and Tracie Hawlett were reported missing. The same day, JB's vehicle was also found by police parked on Herring Avenue in Ozark with the doors unlocked and the gas tank empty. Despite the fact that the girls' purses were in the car, there were no signs of a forced entry or robbery. The dashboard also held JB's license. The car's keys were the only thing missing, and it was unclear why the teenage girls would have stopped where they did. Police launched a search since the girls were nowhere to be found in the vehicle, and Tracie's parents have already made a complaint of the missing person. But sadly, a few hours later, neither a sign nor any leads indicated where the teenage girls were. At that point, they made the decision to tow the truck. The Dothan investigator who discovered he could use a lever to open the car's trunk. In the end, they were not in need of the lost keys. After finding the car by the side of the road for 6 hours, he made the choice. They discovered the girls' dead bodies when the trunk burst open. However, Tracie had a single gunshot wound to the temple, a cut on her arm, and briar thorns on her pants. The girls were dressed and there were no evident signs of a struggle. She had bought a pair of New Balance shoes last week for $95 and they were caked in dirt. She had been put into the trunk first, judging by how the remains were arranged. On her leg, a 9mm shell casing sat precariously. JB had been shot in the cheek and she was clearly dirty with mud on her shoes. Below the knee, the pants of both girls were soaked. Police were also able to gather DNA evidence of the potential offender because semen was discovered at the location. The fact that all of the girls' possessions were undamaged eliminated robbery as a potential cause. The only thing from the vehicle missing was the keychain that belonged to JB. It was characterized as having "hard to get" written in black characters on white blocks. No evidence of drinking or narcotics was found during the autopsies and showed neither girl had been sexually assaulted. However, more than 2 months later, the State Crime Lab revealed in a report that JB's bra, underwear, and skin all had signs of semen contamination. A culprit may finally be found, according to law enforcement, using the semen. On top of that, the trunk's lid had a palm print that was not known. Additionally, authorities were able to establish that the girls had not been murdered where the car was parked on Herring Avenue. District Attorney for Dale and Geneva Counties, David Emery, stated, "You have to think it's a sex offense, or at least came out of a sex offense. I believe we would have the murderer if we could identify the donor of the semen, a false lead, and the first suspect." The JB Beasley and Tracie Hawlett murders gained widespread attention. After authorities discovered their bodies and determined it was no longer a missing persons case, the story was covered by almost all news organizations. Johnny William Barrentine's strange confession. On the evening of July 31, 1999 at 11:30, Johnny William Barrentine, a 28 years old part-time mechanic, informed his young wife that he was going out to purchase milk for the couple's 2-year-old kid. Tracie Hawlett was also on the phone with her mother from the Big Little store payphone at the same time. Barrentine didn't get back home until just before 1 in the morning, and when he arrived, his wife claims he was extremely agitated When questioned, he stated that a black truck with a Dothan tag near Herring Avenue hit my car. Barentine later revealed to others that he had information concerning the deaths of the two teenagers whose bodies were discovered on Herring Avenue. He simply stated that he believed he might know who was responsible, according to Evelyn Murphy, whose boyfriend Leon Jordan pushed Barentine to approach the authorities and claim the reward. Barentine finally heeded the advice, and on September 1, exactly 1 month after JB and Tracie's bodies were discovered, he met with the police for a 4-hour recorded interrogation. During that time, he told 6 different scenarios, placing himself in some of them at the scene of the crime. Barentine first claimed that he had seen a black truck speeding away from the location where the girls were found on the night of the killings. According to Ozark Police Chief Tony R. Spivey, he repeatedly modified his statement throughout the questioning, eventually saying that he had picked up a tattooed man he didn't know and the two had driven past the Big Little store. Barentine claimed the man he had given a ride to urged him to follow after the two girls, whom he named as the dead girls, got into a car. He stated they ended up on Herring Avenue, where the man took the girls out of the car. Barentine claimed to have heard 2 gunshots, and after giving the man a ride away from the location, when he came back, he left for home. In a different account, Barentine admitted to the detectives that the man he had picked up and driven away was in fact his neighbor. Alarmingly, Barentine lived a mere 0.8 miles, to be precise, from the scene of the girls' bodies' discovery. On the spot, police detained Barentine and charged him with 2 charges of capital murder, designating him the main suspect. However, issues with his accounts emerged. The neighbor he accused had a valid excuse for the evening. The DNA from the semen did not match that of Barentine or the neighbor, and he never discussed sexual behavior that would explain the semen found on JB's body and clothing. Barentine, whose mugshot gives him the appearance of someone who has just roused from a deep sleep, instantly acknowledged he had made up the entire incident in order to make some quick money. He later informed the grand jury, "I didn't see anything. To obtain the reward money, I made up everything." Spivey stated that the reason Barentine was a suspect was because he says he was there. He explained how to get the girls out of the car to us. One of the girls left. The girls were aggressive. The person put the girls inside the trunk. 2 shots were heard. The shooter returns to the vehicle. His hand is holding something. He took the shooter out of the town. He went back home. Agent Charles Huggins of the Alabama Bureau of Investigation said during a preliminary hearing on September 21 that Barentine was able to describe the girls' attire and other objects connected to the crime. Spivey said that Barentine's arrest had been ordered by the district attorney, who was present at the interview on September 1. When his arrest was revealed at a press conference, Spivey indicated that police were sure they had the proper individual in custody. Spivey would subsequently say, "If you don't prosecute him, you might be simply letting a murderer walk out of the door. You find yourself in an impossible situation." Since his arrest on September 1, Barentine has been detained at the Dale County Jail without being released on bond. Barentine denied being engaged in the homicides at a bond hearing on October 18 before Circuit Judge P.B. McLaughlin, despite telling the investigators he saw the 2 17-year-olds being shot to death by a friend who had tattoos all over his arms. Barentine admitted to the judge that he had never picked up a man with tattoos and had been blind the night of the killings. He claimed that around 11 p.m. he simply went to the BP to purchase milk for his young son. Barentine's bond was rejected by McLaughlin, who then selected Bill Cominos, a 36-year-old legal veteran, to represent the accused. Friends and family members of Barentine stuck behind him and proclaimed his innocence to anybody who would listen. He did not commit it, his mother, Faye Barentine, insisted to reporters the day following her son's arrest. He is incapable of performing it. He is incapable of doing anything to harm a child because his son is just 2 years old. Kominos said his client had definitely stumbled into a position with investigators he wasn't capable of handling. He continued, speaking in slow, deliberate tones, his hands clasped, almost as if he were praying. As a lawyer, you need to take what your client says with a grain of salt sometimes. However, as soon as I saw the automobile and the evidence, I got a gut feeling that something wasn't right. It was impossible for Johnny Barentine to have done this. According to Kominos, there was constant pressure on the police to make an arrest because of the swelling prize fund. It expanded enough, according to Kominos, to drop Barentine in. Well, they got going. They inquired and inquired and inquired 4 hours. The attorney continued, pausing between each statement to observe stillness. Everything is on film, and the inquiries progress to acquisitions, from charges to recommendations. Barentine, who has been a resident of Ozark for a while and who was living at 110 Young Avenue with his wife and son, claimed that he first visited Spivey a few days after the killings to inform him of a story. As soon as Spivey offered him a name, he was informed that the person Barentine had identified was not a suspect because police had already investigated the rumor. Barentine allegedly claimed that several days after the murder, he, his wife and brother-in-law went in search of something at the spot on Herring Street where the car was discovered. In the police station interview on September 1, Barentine claimed he was exhausted when he related the incident to the officers. He claimed that he was interrogated for more than 4 hours without being informed that he could use the restroom or leave at any moment. Police tricked me, he claimed, into relaying the tale. Barentine was said to have completed the 7th grade as well as a portion of the 8th grade and to have been enrolled in special education classes at one time. Joe Gallo, a lawyer in Daleville, asserted that he didn't think police, who were under extreme pressure to crack the case, would discuss charges against Barentine if they thought he was even remotely connected. The only explanation Gallo provided for Barentine's claims that he had moderate mental health issues. "You now have me," he said. The judge granted Barentine's plea for bond after learning that his DNA did not match that of the semen discovered on JB's body and clothing. The prisoner was let out on Friday, December 17th. A Dale County grand jury decided not to indict Barentine in January. At the time, Kominos stated that Barentine was trying to pick up the pieces while residing in Daleville and that there was no physical evidence connecting Barentine to the murders. Spivey said that Barentine is also believed to have made a jailhouse confession, although police still view him as a suspect. According to police, Barentine may face charges down the road if additional information comes to light. Other suspects: the man from Michigan. Even while testing failed to link the Michigan's man DNA to that found on J.B. Beasley's clothing, Spivey still considers him a very viable candidate. Do you think McCraney committed the killings? If so, what triggered him? Do you find any credibility in the police cover-up claims? Leave your comments in the box provided below. For more compelling stories like this, remember to like, share and subscribe to our channel.